6 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, recorded September 11th, 2019. My name's Eric, I'm the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, VE3 EPN, and a computer geek. I got into preparedness when I was working frontline emergency services and witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events such as ice storms, power outages, etc. I started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared and to be able to look after themselves for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
My name is Ian, and I live on a small hobby farm in BC. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, sport shooter, reloader, field officer for the CCFR, and my farm's designated handyman.
My name is Alan. My friends and family call me a safety nerd. My background as a first responder, developed my mind for safety. I teach first aid, coach friends and family to be better prepared. I'm a locksmith by trade and have worked in the physical security industry for more than 20 years now.
Well, want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air? Buy a Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt at www.rapidsurvival.com. All proceeds help keep the lights on.
Super cool.
and they keep up backup generator fuel.
If you are enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Canadian Prepper Podcast and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad. Let us know how we're doing. If there's a topic you want to cover, or if you like or dislike something, shoot us an email, feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, we've got some well-preserved content for you in this episode. Kieran, now with the dad jokes.
You're reaching for that one.
We're going to start off with some news articles related to preparedness in the outdoors. Next, we'll let you know how we've improved our preparedness since the last episode. And we're going to get into the main topic for this episode, canning in preparedness. Let's move in some news articles.
My show notes up until about 3.5 minutes ago were something super sarcastic about something bad weather, something people doing dumb things, something whatever. But I did put up an article from BC. In Chilliwack, there was an armed robbery, which is not a terribly unusual thing, except that it's a good reminder to keep your head on a swivel and pick your moments to be a hero. This particular one worked out well where no one got hurt, but I think that was a liquor store, and it's a reminder that things can go south pretty fast.
Well, most of these companies and banks, everything else, they're all insured. So if they do get robbed, it's not your problem. It's not worth dying for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like don't worry about somebody else's money. That's the big thing about armed robbery.
Pretty much, yeah. Unless there's imminent harm or death to somebody around or yourself, let the property go.
Property's replaceable. People aren't.
You got it.
Quick note for everybody, just to mention that today is September 11th. So just as a reminder, 18 years ago now, had a huge loss of life to civilians, first responders, airline employees. Also another reminder that no matter what we talk about on this podcast, you can never predict the big black swan events that come along now and then.
It's a true story.
True story.
I can't believe 18 years ago. That's
Well, it's one of those things where just like the Kennedy assassination or the man on the moon or whatever, you always kind of remember where you were that day.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And I think everybody's got a story of some sort, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I also heard there was like a storm kind of big down the Bahamas.
What?
Yeah.
A storm?
Yes, seriously.
Yeah.
Hurricane Dorian. So it's too bad Hugues wasn't here because he had to deal with the remnants going towards his house in the East Coast there. But
he might be a little bit busy.
Yeah,
just slightly.
It sounds like he had a few things to do. So
yeah,
we're looking forward to his debrief on that. Probably the next episode. A couple interesting things though I found on the internet. Like one of the Bahamian government officials, he basically had video of his ground floor house, and he had about 8 inches, maybe a foot of water in his floor. But he actually looked at his windows, and it looked like the front window of a washing machine because the water level was actually sloshing above the windows. So basically, if he'd opened his door or the windows are broken, there'd be that much more water coming into his house. And so the storm surge was just incredible. Like because I guess the storm basically stalled out over the Abacos Island there for a while, and pretty crazy to watch. Couple of things to mention: looting, of course, didn't take long.
Never does.
Never does. Yeah.
Yeah, within a few hours of the storm basically leaving the area, people were out looting because they knew that there's no immediate help coming, and most of them don't pack a whole lot of extra food. So I think this started out with the empty houses, but then interestingly enough, that because it's a former British protectorate, now it's independent, but they carried forward with the firearms laws. So most of the population is disarmed, and only the gangs had guns. And sure enough, the first thing they did is start using those illicit guns for to augment their looting abilities. So that
who could have predicted that?
Who could have predicted that criminals wouldn't follow laws?
Wait a minute.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking.
I'm sure the criminals in Canada will get an ATT or something to bring their guns to loot the houses.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it was sad to watch because some of these guys, obviously these citizens were just trying to hunker down and do their own things, but these guys came along and they're the only ones with the guns, so they were able to take what they wanted. A couple of notes. Interestingly enough, the satellite-based internet that I think Alan relies on as well was the main means of communication now, because between WhatsApp, Signal app, everything else, that's the only way they had to communicate with each other, even on the same island, was using satellite internet and messaging apps. So not too many ham radio operators down there, but there was no cell phone, no landlines, anything else left.
No phone, no lights, no motor car.
Yeah, it's very
primitive. And something else I was reading about was that City of Miami is actually sending their urban search and rescue team over to the island without federal authorization or support, because the federal governments are, like the U.S. government and the Bahamian government, are squabbling over who's going to pay for what and where and how and what kind of support's in place. And the supporting agencies have said it's taking too long and people are dying. So Miami said, you know what? F it, we're just gonna go, and we'll worry about the details later. So good on the city of Miami for stepping up when things get rough.
Well, especially when they need help now, not when the government sort out their hierarchies.
Well, true. This is one of those times where it's better to beg forgiveness than ask permission. Just go get it done.
Yep. I've got an article here. It's actually from Salt Lake Magazine. It's just in regards to 3 different ways to preserve your fall harvest. Figured it was a good little article to put in here, considering the show topic for this episode. So there's a couple little tips and tricks for anybody that wants to read it. Nothing too crazy, and probably most of it we're going to cover off. But if you want another article, check it out.
There's no such thing as too much information.
You got it. Let's move into what we've done lately for our preps. So for myself, was out on the annual fishing trip. So we pack up the boat, a couple of the trucks, and we go out to literally the middle of nowhere. And there's no cell reception. There's no nothing. It's wonderful. Throw a tent up, light a fire, and we bring some food with us. But one of the nights is dedicated to whatever we catch out of the lake is what we eat. So test the skills out. I am still here, alive and breathing, which means we did something right.
So, what's your favorite fresh fish recipe in the skillet?
You know what? We actually so we cheat a touch, and we bring a propane tank and a deep fryer, and we just grab the beer batter stuff from Canadian Tire.
Yep.
And just put it in the oil, and it's awesome.
That is pretty much a Canadian classic, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
it sure is.
It's really good.
And you were saying it's
Rocky Madsen's Fish Crisp. You get it with every OFAH package when you renew your subscription.
Awesome stuff.
You were saying it's mostly perch where you were?
Yeah, so where we are, it's mostly actually catch a lot of bass. And if you're not catching bass, and you're catching the odd jumbo perch or just regular size perch. So that was quite tasty. And then one of the guys actually, oddly enough, ended up with a rainbow trout. So that was a nice little treat. And yeah, we weren't expecting that at all, but pulled it out and went, what the heck is this? Rainbow trout. Cool.
Delicious. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's delicious. Yeah.
So, what you're saying, it sounds like maybe a dam might have burst to cause some leakage of some farm fish.
Yeah, one of the locals that was out with us a couple of years ago, one of the dams in one of the farm fish places burst, and it looks like some of the rainbows have made their way out to our little fishing hole. So not going to complain about that.
Not at all.
And I'm assuming you're not going to give away the lat along the fishing hole.
No.
I will.
Middle of nowhere.
Where's that go?
Yeah. Middle of nowhere. We normally end up damaging at least 1 or 2 trucks to get out there. And no.
I hear you.
Yeah. If you ask nicely off air, maybe I'll tell you.
Well, as for me, I haven't been home much since the last episode, sadly enough, due to excessive work schedules. So on a few days I had home, I was able to finish stacking up the wood for the winter, which was way too late, honestly. I should have had that done a month ago, but life got in the way, right?
As it always does.
Yeah. Also, the last poultry show of the season happened, so the girls got their birds in there. They actually won a whack up awards, including best in show. So
Nice.
it's a little humble brag there. But the good news is because of that, we're sending those birds to auction, and they should fetch a pretty penny, which will cover some feed costs.
Nice.
Excellent.
Which was kind of the objective. Is the more awards you get behind a bird, the more you can ask. We put in a reserve bid for it. That's happening basically the day after I get home is the auction. So that should be fun. And then let's see here. I set it in the rifle for hunting season. Rifle season actually opened yesterday. But of course, I'm not home. So I'll as soon as I get back, I'll be able to take advantage of that. And then funny story for you. I had to change out a tire on my backup generator trailer that hooks up to the back of the quad so I can run it down to the pump house. Okay. And it goes to show you it doesn't take much to have a little minor catastrophe happen. I had like a little air gauge that measures the PSI. And as part of the servicing before full time, I was changing the oil and checking everything else. I was checking the tire pressure on the generator trailer, and it was reading like 10 psi, which is 20 psi low. And I was like, okay, so I know the compressor. I added some air, and it still showed just under 20 psi. And added some more air, and boom!
Oh no!
Yeah, so pretty much right then and there, I think every chicken on the property, both dogs, and the alpacas off the warning call. Everybody was freaking out. I think I needed to change my shorts, and yeah, it was quite an eye opener, literally, because I thought I'd blown up both my eyeballs too. And so it turns out I probably put about 60 psi into a 30 psi tire, and
found out what happens.
Yeah, it turns out so just a stuck tire gauge was enough to blow out the main tire. So so I had to change out the tire. Kind of my fault.
It's funny because it's not me.
Yeah, I'm sure it's happened to everybody, but yeah, so I had to get a new tire and a new air gauge. So
it's another good reason to invest in quality tools.
Yep.
Yeah, and have backup tires, and you never know how things are going to break because there's nothing wrong with the tire. There's nothing wrong with the compressor. Just a tiny like $3 part caused a major problem if it would have been offline with social services, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So because I wouldn't be able to run down and run the water pump.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need water.
Well, I'm glad it worked out in the end, and it wasn't in an emergency situation. So that's why we do maintenance. I did some vehicle maintenance myself. It is coming up to the cold white part of the year, and so trying to get ahead of that because nobody wants to be fixing stuff when it's below zero. So, friend of mine is going to come over. He's a mechanic. He's going to come and teach me some more in-depth things about vehicle maintenance so I can be a little bit more self-sufficient. So my next task on my car is going to be brakes and wheel hubs. I'm good at fixing most things, but I have no experience with cars. So I'm going to make use of my resources and get somebody that really knows what they're doing to help me and teach me. So cool. That's my big thing. And then we're getting ready. Funny enough, we're actually getting ready to do some canning next weekend ourselves. So this was a timely episode for me learning how to do this.
Awesome. So that means you're teaching everything for this episode, right?
No, I've never done it before. I helped my grandma when I was young, but I've never done it before. So I'm here strictly as a student.
Awesome. Well, maybe with that we'll move to the main topic of the show.
Sure.
All right. So I guess we should ask why we're talking about this.
Yeah.
So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it creates a system of like making shelf-stable foods, including meat products, if you do it right. And I guess also allows us to take advantage of sales with no freezer space. Like, so say freezer's already full and you want to take care of some stuff. If the power happens to go out, yeah, you can preserve what's in your freezer. If you can't run the generator for more than a few days, maybe you can take some time, as much as you can before it all goes bad, I guess, right?
Yeah, there's that and fall harvest too, right? So your garden's starting to come to an end. You got to do something with what it's produced. May as well can it.
I mean, you don't know what to do with 500 pounds of apples.
It's a lot of cans.
Yeah, it's a lot of cans. Yeah, like it's amazing like how a small garden can create way more than you can possibly use before it could go bad too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And there's only so many neighbors you can give squashes to and everything else.
Yeah, before they start throwing them back at you.
Yeah, so actually, it's we've actually been lucking out with that because our next door neighbor has this apple tree that keeps producing over and over again. So he's actually gotten to the point where he's throwing them over the fence to the alpacas, and they're loving it too. So
yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so it also keeps the bear away from his property and hopefully maybe moves them towards ours. But anyway,
Could be good, could be bad.
no, it'd be good now. It's the
Yeah.
right season. So adds variety to the daily diet as well. So I mean, if you're on a long-term survival diet, you can only have so much rice and beans before you start getting like crazy and angry. So I think if you have people that are looking for a bit of variety, it might be a huge morale boost if you come in there with some jam or something else that's at least different too, right?
Yeah, something different, a little bit of flavor, a little bit of sweetness if it's jam. Why not? Add it to the mix.
Although not keto.
No.
But it can be. I remember vividly my grandma's pickles. That was the big thing in my family. She made the best pickles, and to this day I've never found pickles I've enjoyed as much as her dill pickles. It was dill and garlic that came out of her garden, and cucumbers that came out of her garden, and jars that were probably 100 years old, and she put new rings on them every year. But those I remember. I mean, it's been 10 years, but there was like the last batch that she made lasted our family for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess we should cover off the two main methods. So there's the pressure canning method and just the water bath method. If you want to talk about preserving foods, we can always talk about salting, but I think that's another topic for another day. I've never trusted it myself, so
yeah, never tried that part.
Yeah,
it's also not a terribly efficient way to do it, because you need like a ton of salt to do it well.
Yeah.
From everything I've read, anyways. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. We bought half a pig for this fall, but the pig's not quite ready yet. But I don't think we're ready to start doing salting our own bacon or anything yet. That's beyond my skill set.
Well, bacon is wonderful.
Bacon is so good. Tools required. So a large pot or pressure canner, depending on what you're doing. Tongs so you don't have to handle super hot jars. And
they look very handy.
Yeah, so the canning tongs look like almost like they got the shape of a ring and the rubber side, and it's just two handles, and they'll be in the canning section at the Canadian Tire, wherever you want to go.
You can get a little starter kit. Actually, that's what I did.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
it comes with everything.
Awesome.
Yeah. Including a plastic funnel for you.
Yep, that thing saves so much mess.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Jars. There's a couple of main brands, right? There's Golden Harvest and there's Bernardin. I think Bernardin's made in Canada.
I believe so.
Yeah. Lids. So you were talking about rings, Alan. So I mean, there's either the metal rings or metal lids that are like one-time use, and there's the glass lids with the removable or changeable rubber rings, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
my grandma always used the metal rings and just recycled those every year.
Yeah, that's all I've ever used as well. It's just the little snap cap metal caps. And
yeah, I mean, I think I was told for meat products you can't reuse them, but I think for jam you can.
Yeah, I've never been brave enough to try.
Yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
I was always told those are one and done. Yep.
Yeah, kinda. So magnetic lid grabber. So if you're boiling your lids to sterilize them, you want to be able to stick this magnetic lid grabber into the hot water and pull one lid out at a time, which is very handy.
Yep, it is also included in the starter kit at Canadian Tire.
Oh, look at that. Maybe we should get them as a sponsor.
Maybe we should, yeah.
Yeah, so regardless of method, I mean, hygiene's important. So, this isn't something you can do kind of half effort on. You got to kind of be a little bit anal on this one.
Yes, absolutely.
Botulism is not a fun surprise.
Yeah.
Pretty much any recipe that I've followed starts out with put the jars in the canner for 20 minutes or whatever it says at boiling and let them sit. Every single recipe starts out with that.
Yeah, so I mean, one way we do is we clean our jars, make sure they're clean, even if you get them straight from Canadian Tire or whatever. You still want to wash them at least once. And then what we do is we sterilize it in the oven at just 250 degrees. It's hot enough to kill everything, and at least for 20 minutes. Then you can let it sit afterwards as long as you want in the oven. Sterilize your lids, like you were mentioning. You can boil the lids. And as long as you don't touch the inside of the lid afterwards, you're fine.
Yep. That's where the magnet thing comes in play. You're not sticking your hand in hot water either.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you've done water bath then, right, Eric?
Yes. Yeah, that's the only method I've done is water bath. And,
okay. So that just requires a large cooking pot and the lid for the cooking pot, right?
Yeah, and a large amount of water in the pot.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind when you're setting up. It's going to take a while to boil that much water.
Yeah, so that's used for jams and preserves and salsa and you can't do pickles with that one, can you?
You can do pickles.
Yeah, pickles.
Yeah, you can do pickles.
Sure can.
Yeah. Keto warning, like I said before, high sugar content for the jam.
Yeah, it's gonna mess up your whole keto diet. Yeah.
Yeah, unless you use some sort of sugar substitute, which can or cannot work depending on the recipe, I guess.
Yep.
So, like Eric mentioned, the water level has to go above the lids for water bath method.
Yeah, it's about an inch or two above the lids.
Yeah, so basically, once you figure out whatever you're going to do, so whether it be applesauce, jam, or whatever, you want to just toss it in, make sure that the lid is clean and the rim of the jar is clean. You know, whether you have to wipe it off or whatever.
Yep.
Get your lid down. Don't have to screw it on super tight, but
Just finger tight.
Finger tight, yep. Boil for how long do you boil your stuff for your salsa?
So my jams are usually about a half hour. And then let them sit for another 5 or 10 after the boiling's done, and then take them out, and then they sit overnight, and you get the nice little pop clicking noise as they all start to seal up, and they're sitting on the counter.
Yeah, so when you remove it with the tongs there, you want to put it on some sort of a towel or something that's not going to touch the counter directly. You don't want to delaminate your counter.
No, that'd be bad.
Pro tip, pro tip: don't delaminate your counter like I've done. Yes. And also, it's even worse with the pressure getting. It's just that much hotter.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah.
And I think basically, you want to make sure that you hear all of them pop, and then you can check later on that there's no give on the lid. And if there's any give, you don't have a proper seal, so you kind of have to either redo that one or eat it first.
Yeah. If it doesn't pop, that's just the first one you eat. Doesn't mean it's bad or anything. It just means it's not sealed, so you got to throw it in the fridge and eat it now.
Yeah, so I mean, that's Vic Pepper 11 actually, just on the WhatsApp group there. He mentioned using paraffin as an alternative. So I remember back when I was a kid helping my mom do it, she would sometimes use paraffin for jams because she ran out of lids. And I think it's good short term, but of course, one quick knock around and you've broken the seal, so it's not much good anymore.
Yep.
And it is a petroleum product, so some people aren't keen on that.
If it's all you got.
It does burn, but I mean, it works, right? So it does create a seal, and really for stuff like this, it doesn't really matter too much if you don't have a proper seal because it's such a high sugar content that sugar, salt, anything like that is such a high preservative value that it's kind of okay, right?
Yeah. The big thing I found with doing the water bath method is getting the headroom just right. So you want to make sure you got just a little bit. Any recipe you look at will kind of tell you how much space to leave above the contents of the jar. Because if you don't get that quite right, you're not going to get a proper seal either.
Yeah, so the headspace, a couple functions, right? You don't want to have the contents that you're sealing up like spill over the lid and create like a lack of seal. But also you want to have enough air pressure in there that when it cools, it actually sucks in that lid.
Yep.
And there's a third reason, I can't remember offhand what it is for headspace, but you want to follow those directions pretty precisely if somebody's got a good recipe for you.
Yeah, and there's a little tool you can get to that conveniently is in that starter kit I keep talking about that helps out with establishing the measurement of the different products that you're putting into your cans. So again, your recipe. This
episode of the Canadian Prepper Podcast brought to you by the Canadian Tire, the Canadian Tire canning starter kit.
It's actually a Bernardin starter kit. So there you go. We'll pump them a little bit.
Yeah,
Bernardin starter kit available at Canadian Tire.
If I'm not mistaken, Bernardin's like a Montreal company or something, so it's been around forever.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think a starter kit for anything like this is going to be the best value no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah, it gives you all the basic things that you're going to need, and you can run and start right away with a simple recipe. I suggest starting out with a salsa or something, because that's a high acidic thing that you're making, and chances of screwing it up are slim to none, and chances of some kind of nastiness growing in it if you do mess something up are also slim to none.
Yeah, so I think as far as cash outlay to start out with and ease of doing it, a water bath is definitely a good way to start.
Yeah.
And plus, most people have fruits or stuff that can be easily water bathed, more so than the other products that we're going to talk about. But I think that's probably if you're going to start out, that's probably the better way to go, I would think. You guys agree?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I've been doing the water bath thing now for three years for canning, and I'm just now kind of starting to feel comfortable with it. And takes some time, but it's easy to, the first couple of recipes you try out, you're going to screw up, just the way it goes. But then you'll kind of start to get a feel for things, and once you kind of get a flow, like anything else, once you get a flow and you kind of figure out what works for you, you'll be rocking out all kinds of recipes.
It's exciting. Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of feeling of less reliance on the man when you're using something like this. It's your own product. You know exactly what went into it. You don't have to guess the ingredients list when you're looking at the side of a Smucker's jam or whatever. You kind of look at it like, really? Oh, wow.
What's in this? Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to tone down the sugar content, you can do that too, right? And it's
absolutely you can.
It's a very customizable event. So.
Yeah. That jalapeno jam I was talking about an episode or two ago, that was like 6 cups of sugar.
Oh, jeez. Well, I had some.
It was good jam though.
And I had some of your salsa when I was at your place too, right? That was pretty good.
Yep.
I'm getting fatter just thinking about that.
All right, so I guess we move on to the second method, pressure canning. So used for meat products, whether it be bear from springtime, butter. If you get butter wars going on at your local Costco and you get a great deal on butter, but you don't have room in your freezer, hey, make shelf-stable meat products ready to go when you use pressure canner.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so that's where we actually got started was butter wars. I think in Costco here in Nanaimo, they actually had butter down to like $1.99 a pound. And so, because it was when Target first opened up, and then they went crazy. Like there was just like this price war. So we ended up getting like 40 or 50 pounds of butter. There's no way we're going to use it in time. So that was our first impetus to actually try pressure canning. So we'd never done it before. Now, full disclosure, this is firmly in my wife's expertise zone, not mine. And most of what I'm going to tell you guys is basically what I've learned by osmosis from her, and she's not willing to come on the podcast, so I talk about it. So
Fair enough.
Here I am. So yeah, pressure canning for meat products. What else can I tell you? It's number one reason that we do this is because, of course, boiling water is around 100 Celsius, depending on altitude. But as you pressure can stuff, when you boil stuff under pressure, you get a higher internal temperature, which allows you to take care of diseases that you might have to worry about, like, for example, trichinosis with bear meat, botulism, which can be a problem.
Nobody wants that.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. Problem. And I'm not saying it 100% guarantee takes care of them. Use your nose, but at least lessens the risk at least, right? And as a general rule, you never want to just water bath meat products.
No, probably a bad idea.
I can't think of a reason why you would, but I mean, but pressure canner is a little bit more extensive setup, right?
So question about that: when you're canning meat products, would you cook the meat first and then can it to preserve it?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Actually, we should talk about that. We'll do it right now. So basically, what we did, for example, with the bear, I got the spring. So all we did was throw the chunked up bear meat in a jar, threw a little bit of salt, pepper, garlic, whatever you want to spice it with, and literally that's it. A little bit of headspace, about an inch or so, and sealed it off, and that was it. And the funny thing is, because it's such a high temperature, it boils off all the liquid out of the meat, and it creates its own stock. And so the meat, 98% of it, sitting there in liquid that came from the meat itself, and the fat separates and everything else. And that's it. You just gonna throw in what you want to take care of. The butter itself, we actually threw the butter into these jars and did enough that we knew we was gonna fill most of the can. And for the first little while, everything that you pull out of the pressure can looks disgusting. Like the butter we looked at, it must have separated and it stayed separated for about a month and a half. And then finally, after about the 2-month mark, then it finally came back together and started looking like butter again, like the ghee you'd see at the Indian food store or whatever, like the clarified butter and stuff. That's it. It finally looks like butter after a couple months. But the first little while, you're like, I don't want to touch that stuff. It looks horrible. But we checked after a month with each one, and they're fine. I mean, they taste great and it works. It's just, I guess the way it separates stuff up under the high heat, it just takes a while to kind of recombine, right?
Sure.
So you don't have to put anything in there at all. So pressure canners, for those that haven't seen one, you can obviously Google it. I recommend the All American brand. It's kind of like the gold standard. And there's lots of them out there at garage sales. But basically, it's like, preferably the All American does not use a rubber ring or a seal. It just uses metal on metal seals, which is what you want because it doesn't wear out and it's actually easy to maintain. Just put a tiny bit of like cooking oil or between the two metal bits, and that's it. It has a bunch of screws that tighten up the lid from the bottom, and then it allows you to create under pressure contents. So unlike the water bath, there's only a few inches of water put into this stuff. So you put basically a few inches of water and a little bit of vinegar to keep it from scaling up the bottom of the pot. And then once you've got what you want a pressure can in there, you actually put it in the pressure canner, seal it up, put on the screw top, and then bring it up to a boil. But you have a little vent on the top that you allow to keep venting for a while. And so you bring it up to a boil and it starts venting steam. Give it 10 minutes. You won't lose a whole lot of water. And then the way it works is, based on the recipe or experience, there's a multi-specific weight that allows you a certain amount of pressure. So there's a pressure gauge on top of the pressure canner. If you use, for example, like a 10-pound weight on it, it'll bring out up to 10 psi. And then, so depending on the recipe that you're following, you'll bring it up to a certain psi for a certain amount of time. So, for example, the bear meat, we boiled it under pressure at 10 psi for 90 minutes. And of course, the temptation afterwards, like there's an overpressure relief valve, there's all sorts of the tidbits on top. Home hardware actually is awesome for spare parts for All American. And or you can just call the All American people down in Pennsylvania or something like that. They will send you parts. It's kind of like one of those Fiskars things, or like the SE knives or whatever. If you need a part, if they do charge you, it'd be a very minimal fee. But in reality, they'd be like, if you need like a rubber seal or whatever, like for the overpressure thing, they'll just send it to you.
Nice, cool.
Because these things are worth about $400 new, which we'd never want to pay. But at garage sales,
yeah, I was just gonna say I'm on the there's a Canadian company that I found that's retailing them for about retailing a 15-quart canner, pressure canner for $350.
Yeah, and you don't have to pay that. We paid $80 for ours at a garage sale, and I think we even paid too much then. But it was the only one in town at the time, so we wanted it. So $80, we figured we're still ahead. So I think we spent about $30 getting it up to the current standard. Because if you phone the All American people and tell them what you have, like for example, which model, they'll tell you what you need to make sure it's like as safe as possible. If you're missing something, they'll let you know where to find it, or they'll send it to you, which is pretty cool. Like their customer service is great.
Awesome.
So. Anyways, so I have, with the bear meat there, like I said, we boiled it under pressure for 90 minutes. We allowed the pressure to come down naturally. We didn't take the weight off or anything else. And then, because of course, if you lifted the weight off and left the pressure off too fast, the jars would just kind of collapse on themselves and crack, and or you'd have like a bunch of stock and meat inside the water, which would be no good, of course. So even if you leave it overnight or for 3 or 4 hours to take the pressure off, you can literally take them out the next day and they're still bubbling.
Huh?
Wow.
Which is a little bit bizarre to watch. So we pulled them out after I think 3 hours and put them on the counter under about 3 or 4 layers of towels, and literally bubbled for about 4 or 5 hours at least afterwards.
Well, I mean, I guess glass is a great insulator, and if it's an insulated container already, then I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no air changing out, right? So it's like it's crazy hot. So it's pretty good. So yeah, that they basically takes care of it. You can plan for about a year with preserved meat products. You could probably do more if it was dark and cool and everything else, but at least that's better than nothing, right? So, I don't think anybody's going to run a backup generator for a year, but if you have this pressure can, then it takes away your worries, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, it extends the life, and that's kind of what we're after, right? I mean, you're not going to have enough. No, most people aren't going to have enough food on hand to last a year anyways, so the chances are good that that's going to get you through a winter until you can go out and start foraging again in spring.
Yep.
If things go really far south.
And like you said, you mentioned before, like so the lids are one and done, but I mean the glass jars are certainly reusable.
Oh, absolutely.
And
there are glass jars in my family that are getting close to 100 years old. Yep.
Yeah, and so I mean, it makes the greenies happy at that point, right? If you're reusing, and recycling, and everything else. So and glass is a renewable product, right? So I mean, heck, you can't possibly make anybody angry doing this stuff. So I wouldn't think
still killed a bear.
Well, I know, but actually, I had the discussion today too. But I mean, let's face it. We could talk about organic, free-range meat and sustainably managed and ethically harvested, and antibiotic-free meat, and it all works out. Right?
Here come all the buzzwords.
Yeah, that's right. And the more buzzwords you get, the better, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Organic, free-range,
you know where it comes from.
Non-GMO.
Yeah, you know where it comes from. You know it didn't get put into
table.
It.
Yeah.
No growth hormones.
Nope.
So, that's pretty much all I had.
Yeah. Give you a quick run through on just doing the water bath thing. Same kind of thing as the pressure canning. You'll just find your recipe. Like for that jalapeno jam that I made, it was literally, like I said, 6 cups of sugar, which is a lot of sugar. I took the jalapenos and some apple cider vinegar, mixed those up in the food processor, got it all liquefied, poured it all into the pot, boil it for about 10 minutes. Once it comes to a rolling boil, added some pectin into it, let that roll for another minute, keep stirring it up, and then spoon it all into your jars. That's where your funnel comes in handy because you're not spilling stuff all over the freaking place. So funnel it all into the jars, put the lids on with the snap caps, and same thing. Put it in the water bath instead of the pressure canner. It boils for about 10 minutes or so, and then let it sit for another 5 after the boiling's done. Take it out, put it on the rack, and listen for the caps to start popping, and away you go. So, it sounds simple, easy to walk people through it step by step. But
where do you get your recipes?
So I get a lot of my stuff just through Google. So I'll toss into Google. Like I was looking for a good jalapeno jam recipe, so I just said jalapeno jam canning recipe. Happens that Bernardin actually has a whole bunch. So got one here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm on the Bernardin website right now while we're talking,
and I'm gonna be doing this one this weekend.
There's a ton of it.
So, actually, my wife gets most of her recipes from Pinterest.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. Which I thought it was mostly just pictures, but there's recipes there too.
Oh no, there's a Pinterest for everything.
Oh, sure is.
Yeah.
So there's a Pinterest for absolutely everything.
I'll be doing the habanero gold jelly
that's really
this weekend.
Cool.
So. The other thing too is like habanero, I guess
gold jelly. Excellent.
I was talking with my mom about this one actually, and she was saying that on the farm they would do chicken meat, fish. Fish is another one. You can just like throw the fish right in the jar, and there's enough liquid in the fish that it boils and creates its own stock as well. So out here on the West Coast, you could do the same thing. Just get a hunk of salmon, even if it's just like leftover bits that you can't turn into a fillet or whatever. You just throw a bunch of chunks of salmon in there, and you got ready-made fish stock and meat for a soup, right?
Nice.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. There's all kinds of cool recipes out there that you can check out and find. Like I said earlier, start up with like a salsa or something with a water bath. Simple, easy, high acidity. So if you do bugger it up, you're hopefully not going to make yourself sick.
Actually, the one thing I forgot to mention too is that currently, I think while I'm away for work right now, my wife's actually doing stock, like chicken stock, from some of the birds that we processed a little while ago. There, she had some frozen chicken stock, but once you can it, it's good for a lot longer than sitting in the freezer. So she's actually same idea, but you have to use the pressure canner for that because it's a meat product. But it does a really good job on that. So instead of going to Costco and spending $2 or $3 per Tetra Pak or more for the chicken stock, that's full of all sorts of assorted chemicals, you can get your own chicken stock, a little bit of salt done, and you've got stuff that's good for at least a year.
Yeah, that's the other thing we didn't mention is shelf life for water bath. Same as pressure. You got about a year.
I mean, I think everybody's had jam that's been sitting up in the cold room there for a couple of years. It's still fine too because it's such a high sugar content, right? And it's amazing the types of jam you can make too. Or if you're to the Indian food, you can make your own chutneys.
Yep.
All sorts of other things. Hot sauce,
I've got a whole bunch of cans of hot sauce that I made up from hot peppers from last year's garden, and still looks fine, still tastes fine. So I'm still eating it. I'm still breathing. So I must be doing something right.
Like I said,
death plus one is the goal.
That's right. And like I said, if it doesn't look great when it comes out of the canning system, that's okay. It'll sort itself out. And when in doubt, just use your nose. You'll know right away if it's not good.
Yeah. And like I keep saying, for your first couple, be prepared to lose that batch, just because it's going to take some experimentation to figure out exactly what works in your climate and your area as well. Just because boiling for 10 minutes for me and then letting it sit for 5 minutes after turning the boiling off, that works for me for like solidifying my jam and making sure everything seals. It might not work in your environment. So you're going to have to play around a little bit with that.
Yeah, I think we did a pretty much a basic coverage, but I mean, I'm sure if anybody has any questions, send them in and we can certainly answer them on the next webcast as well. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And really with this, it's practice makes perfect. There's all kinds of different ways and everybody's got a different way of doing it. And everybody will say the other guy's way is wrong. It's just a matter of figuring out what works for you. So
cool.
We'll move into the podcast challenge if we don't have anything else to add.
I think that's it.
That's it. I don't have any more questions, but we are gonna come back to this. I'm gonna take lots of videos and pictures this weekend when we try it this weekend coming, and we'll debrief on it afterwards and see how it goes.
Perfect. And
up
tis
on the
the
Facebook
season
page or something. Yeah,
tis the season. So anybody has questions, fire them in the feedback at prepperpodcast.ca or throw them up on the Facebook page if you're on Facebook, and we'll make sure to add them and get them on the next episode because there's going to be all kinds of people canning pretty soon because Old Man Winter is just around the corner.
Yeah, which used to be like everybody was doing it for the longest time, and now like almost nobody's doing it.
It kind of comes in waves. So.
Maybe we'll make it cool again.
Oh, it's already cool. Come on.
So for the podcast challenge, under the banner of cost savings, right now Canadian Tire or Walmart or Home Hardware, they're all charging a premium for the jam jars because if you wait till the last minute, that's just like a convenience store. They wanted to get it to you, but if you wait till canning season is over, like by November, December, usually you can get some jam jars on blowout, and it is crazy what they'll blow those things out for, like 75% off type of thing, which is
it's almost like going for Halloween candy after Halloween.
Yeah. So, Canadian Tire is famous for having its normal price and its sale price, and the sale prices they still make a profit on. So
yeah, sale price is the actual normal price.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So
sale price is the actual value.
Yeah. Or the actual value. Yeah. So for the podcast challenge, buy some jam jars on blowout after the fall rush is over, and you'll be set up for preserving for next year. Have plenty of time to work on recipes, and at the very worst, you're gonna have some trendy drinking glasses.
That is cool. Yeah.
I have a little jam jar that I take my salad dressing to and from work every day, and it does the job really well.
And this might come into play for our moonshine episode down the road too, right?
Oh, look at that. Yes, there are many, many uses for the canning jars besides canning.
Absolutely.
All right, so maybe we'll move into episode closing and some upcoming events.
Anybody make it to TACOM at all?
Unfortunately, I was fishing.
I saw lots of faces there, but I had to be in town for duty day.
Yeah,
it looked like the biggest one yet for sure, and it was very well received. It seems from all the guys that I was getting messages from.
Yep.
Hopefully, gonna make it next year, but it was my daughter's 16th, and it was it's back to school time, and everything kind of came to a head all at once, so it didn't work out so well.
I really wanted to make it
kind of a tough weekend. Yeah.
Anyway, so I also had one last upcoming event, the Parksville Qualicum Gun Show, last call. So September 15th, Combs Fairground, which is
next weekend.
Yes, next to Goats on the Roof and A Company Military Surplus, who we're going to talk about in a second. I'll be at the CCFR booth, so please feel free to stop by, say hi, ask me questions about anything from CCFR to canning, and we'll have a good chat.
Cool.
Very nice. Let me see here. It was today, so nope, that's not happening. That event's over.
There was a thing that happened today.
There was a thing that happened today. It's not going to help anybody out because it's never mind. So let's move into some shout outs.
So my buddy who did not agree to have his name published because I didn't ask, so he's giving up a Saturday to help teach me about maintaining my car. So thank you for that. I really appreciate the knowledge.
You got to give him a trendy prepper nickname.
Yeah. Car prepper.
We'll call him. You know what? He's gonna be my like BA 2.0, my BA Baracus, because he's one of those guys that's good at everything.
Oh yeah.
Well, so he's gonna be my not so angry BA.
Okay, as long as you can like armor plate your car in a montage, start out with like a little jalopy.
Oh yeah, while wearing gold chains, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, I got a quick shout out to the guys over at Firearm Legal Defense. Just a quick thanks for making sure that Canadians have a decent firearms insurance policy. And talk to them as well. Hopefully, going to get them out on an episode, and we can chat firearms and legalities about them, and maybe demystify a few things and confirm a few things that are out there. But a quick shout out to them.
I got to show it to my wife, who has a amazingly good sense of humor about my sense of humor when it came to my keto talk. So she was actually very good about answering questions about canning that I didn't know. So I had to ask her about a few things for the points here, and she's been very, very helpful, good partner in the preparedness stuff.
Thank you for not killing Ian.
Thank you for not branding me like a baby seal. Yeah. So also the makers of the Blackout podcast. So this is actually a professionally done podcast. It's in season 1 right now. It's called The Blackout, and the makers are Scott Conroy, and the actor's name is Rami Malek. And it's actually really well done, sequentially, kind of narrative kind of podcast, talking about basically a power outage. And it's I'm looking forward to season 2. It was very, very listenable, audible. I know it was fun to watch, or fun to listen to anyway.
Pleasant. It was pleasant.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I have to check it out.
Yeah. So just look under the Blackout, you'll see the actor actor's face on there. He's actually an Academy Award winner of some sort. So,
cool.
yeah. So then the last one was A Company military surplus once again. I got my Nomex fireproof or fire resistant jacket for $15, which was kind of cool for welding and or working around the underbrush burning that I'm planning on doing. And they actually had the extreme cold weather OD green parkas on for $60, which is like the downfilled Canadian Forces one. They're just awesome. So I'll probably end up having to go back there for sure.
Nice. So, some email and iTunes reviews. So, we are up to 31 5-stars. Still got that one little guy at 4. And we've still got that 1 1-star keeping us honest and making sure that we remember the fact that we're doing things right. And we've got a new written review from user Evan, but it's taken, written on August 29th, 2019. It says, if you're interested in learning the concepts of prepping without getting bogged down in product reviews and constant fear-mongering, this is the podcast for you. FYI, the zombies are coming. My favorite takeaway is 1, raising chickens is the best, and 2, always plant invasive species.
Yeah. There's no time. You must have all your preps done now.
Right now. No. Right this second, get the tinfoil hats out.
It is too late.
Yeah. You're going to die. No.
Evan, but it's taken as our next 1-star now.
Oh.
He left us 5. I think he's going to change it to 1.
All right.
But we appreciate
thank you for the kind words, Evan. We appreciate it.
Yeah, muchly appreciated, and thanks for listening.
And we still have to do a chicken episode.
We do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll get back to that.
As far as emails go, there's been a few emails back and forth with some cool people to interview, but some info to come on that at a later date. So keep listening.
Sweet.
And we're up to 44 subscribers on YouTube. So we're starting to get up there.
But
that's getting more.
But daily downloads for the podcast is getting pretty good now too, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We are. You're going to catch me off now because I don't have that up. But,
that's all right. We can come back.
We are starting to. People are starting to take notice. We're definitely, anytime we release an episode, we're getting in the hundreds of downloads, which is nice.
That's
and
cool.
We are in the thousands, actually almost in the 2000s of listens and interactions with the episodes. So people are taking note, which is good. I like it.
Also,
means
we're number 35 of the we're number 35 in the how-to podcasts in Canada. And there's probably only 36, but hey.
Everybody gets a reward.
That's right. Yes. Participation badges for everyone.
Gets a trophy. So we're good. Awesome. Okay, well, with that, I'll bring episode number 36 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Take a few minutes, submit a review. It helps other people find us. You can also find us at prepperpodcast.ca and, of course, on Facebook.
We record these shows on StreamYard. If you would like an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Canadian Prepper Podcast. Click on the notifications tab. That will give you an alert when we're going live. If you want to find me directly, you can get me on Instagram at PPSWO.
All right. You can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. You can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast, also available on iTunes and YouTube. You can find us discussing more government waste if we get back on the air, squirreling off on the odd firearms-related banter, and exposing the daily loss of freedoms we're facing.
Now maybe we'll have to take over the number 1 spot again.
We could try Monday, next Monday. That might just stir them into action.
It might. Or we might just become the number 1 podcast.
Could be. Win-win, right?
Yeah, kind of. I like their podcast, though. I'd rather they come back. Please check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there in the live chat while you are, of course, buying some prepper gear. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Thanks for joining us, and tune in for the next episode. We're going to cover off winter camping because Old Man Winter is on his way. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.